So thank you for listening to the Mental Insights podcast. This is your host, Brennan Catulli, and we are here today with Noelle Agape. And this is episode number 34 of the Mental Insights podcast. Thank you for being here, Noelle. I'm so happy to have you to speak in depth about many different topics within health and wellness.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And to start the interview, I really like to ask my guests this question to help give a brief foundation into, what really drove you into this field and just, what led you into being so passionate about this topic. So when did you first really become and become aware about the topic of mental health and its importance, whether it's within, our mind, our body, just within our overall daily habits and how we can move throughout our day?
So my story started pretty young, and it's a pretty powerful story. So at the age of 15, my grandfather, I watched my hero. He was my grandfather, and he was the greatest man on earth to me, right? He taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to ski. He was this beautiful, powerful man, and I watched him disintegrate into 65 pounds and die of cancer, literally in front of me. Like, I was there and watched him die in front of me. So I learned about death very early on, from a very early age, and it started to springboard about what life really was about for me, right? And so at 15, I dealt with some pretty massive emotions. And then fast forward to when I was 21, my dad died of a heart attack. And so death was pretty prevalent in my family. And so emotionally, it was very, very apparent that I needed to do something with the mental health field. It was my life's purpose, moving me into the life's purpose. And so fast forward from there, my mom got cancer 10 years later. And so I can gladly say that she's actually 10 years cancer free. We put her on an alkaline diet, and she, worked out. She removed her limiting beliefs. She overcame whatever was in her body. But at that moment, I knew I was already studying psychology by the time my mom had adapted cancer. And it was truly death that brought me to life, because it made me realize that that was my soul's purpose. That was my life's purpose, to give back, to have people understand what emotions are and truly understand the depth of what emotions do to you. And so with that, I started to go even further, and I studied NLP, and now I'm an NLP trainer. And then I went even further than that and learned about energy and the quantum physics, and learned about the quantum fields and quantum healing. So emotions really get stored in your body, they get stored in your energy fields. And so if you are not mentally healthy, then you're not overall healthy. And so many people are like, oh, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to exercise, which is amazing, because that's your body, not your vessel. But when they're not taking care of their mind, and when they're not taking care of their energy, really what transpires is that it just brings toxicity into their world. Even if they think they're having a salad and an avocado and they're being healthy, there's still toxic, thoughts and toxic energy around them. So it's really, overall wellness is mental health, and getting to the core of the emotions behind it.
Thank you for sharing that, Noelle. That truly is powerful, especially due to whether it's societal norms about just the aspect of death. I think death plays a big role within people, and it changes the way that they perceive themselves, their relationships around them. And what you were able to do is use that experience to, really revolutionize your own life and how you're going to impact others. I think for death, for many people, it does kind of hold them back, and it changes whether it's their emotional or their behavioral responses, especially when death happens through someone's life at a young age, such as yourself. They really lead themselves to different emotional coping mechanisms that can be in a negative light that brings, 10 years down the road. For yourself and how you were able to face these challenges at such a young age, did you notice anything within your emotional responses as you were moving throughout this? And, did you have the same perspective about death through your family members as you were moving throughout this? Even though that was such a tough time for yourself, how did you see the way that you were coping with your emotions then and now through that change in your perspective on wellness?
Well, I think that very early on, I knew the depth of what emotional health and emotional well-being was, right? And I think that I, at a very young age, took on the role of being the emotional supporter for my family and for everyone else. And I think that that's what led me to study psychology, and that's what led me to practice doing what I'm doing, and which is amazing and wonderful. But at some point you realize that you can't take on other people's emotions, and that's probably my biggest life lesson now, further on, now that I am, a licensed counselor, and I've been in the field for 17 years. It's more, you can absolutely have empathy, and you absolutely can help people through their emotions, and you could guide them to a better place, but you can't take on their emotions, because that's not really your journey, right? It's their journey to learn. And so when, and I'm an empath, and I feel everything. And so when you're going through life and you're taking on other people's emotions, it's a tremendous burden. So at a very young age, at 15, I thought that was my role, to take on, the emotions of my family and carry the burden and the emotions of my family. And as I got further on, and through my adulthood and through my career, I realized that you teach them how to deal with their emotions, and you train them how to understand what's going on with their physical body and their emotional body. And that way, it allows them to heal, as opposed to you taking on the burden and you taking on their responsibility, because it's not really our journey, it's theirs, right? And so we individually each have our own journey that we have to go on, and we have to heal our own emotions, but it's not our responsibility to be in charge of anybody else's emotions. Even if it's you're married, or it's your children, or whatever it is, it's teaching them how to understand their emotional body as well as their physical body.
It's such a valuable step, because many people who, whether it's a death or whether it's someone who's facing mental health struggle, a lot of people, whether it's, the caregiver or someone who is in that close relationship, takes on those emotions and takes on that burden, which causes a lot of distress for that person as well. So you can kind of have that double-edged sword, that you think that you're going to help and be supportive, but you're taking on that burden as well, which is causing, your own challenges throughout your own mental health. When, someone is going through this scenario of whether it's caregiving for someone who is, going through health struggles physically or mentally, what is kind of the mindset, or what is the approach that they should have in that relationship in order to, be there and be supportive, but not take on those emotional burdens?
Oh, that's such a great question. So, there's a fine line between being empathetic and actually taking on other people's stuff, right? And so walking that fine line is really learning how to be in your own power and be in your own emotions, and understanding that you have your boundaries, and understanding that, you can love someone and you don't need to take on their things, and you can be there for them and be supportive for them, and have them own their own emotions, right? And so part of that is just training them to understand what's going on with their emotions, and having boundaries, a strong emotional boundaries. I would say that probably is the biggest thing, is that, energetically and emotionally, if you don't have boundaries, then people are going to walk all over you, and that happens often, many times, with people in the mental health field, right? And so what I could probably say to your community is that, when you are taking on other people's emotions, look within you and find out why you have that need to take on someone else's emotions, right? Is it that you feel that they're not capable, which they absolutely are, obviously, or do you feel that you are loved because you are taking on their emotions, right? So look within you and find out why you feel you need to not have those boundaries, and you not need to have their emotions, when, we each all have our own emotions, and we all have our own journey, and we should be looking within, not without, for gratification or love. And so many times people look to others to heal others, to help others, and not look it within, right? And so if they just stop and say, I love you and I'm here and to support you, but you have to have emotional boundaries. And if you don't have emotional boundaries, that's the first form of self-love, right? Is understanding and knowing when enough is enough, and that everybody else's emotions and everybody else's actions are not your responsibility, but you change you, and that will change them as well.
I love that perspective, to look within and not without, because, oftentimes people who are the caregivers, who are the supportive types, they give, but they never receive or look within in order to, see how their emotions are playing out, or looking within their boundaries of their emotions. And that's something that, we constantly need to reflect upon and see if, we can change, or if we're still, providing the same values and the same aspects of your own emotions that you want to sustain. Within someone's health, I think the big thing that's been coming about, throughout the recent years, is the mind body connection. And it's something that I've constantly, been researching more and trying to understand more about. Can you share more about the mind body connection and how one can achieve this?
Sure. I mean, this is actually what I teach. It's probably the predominant thing that I teach. If you're not connected to your mind and your body, you're actually not connected to your soul and your spirit. So, I do mind, body, soul, and spirit. And what I do is I start at the body. And so the toxins that are coming into your body, what are you eating? What is going into your body? Are you exercising? Are you getting movement? And that is allowing you to get clear thoughts. Literally, when you exercise, it triggers the neurotransmitters in your brains, and it's the oxytocin and serotonin that triggers in your brain after you exercise or you eat healthy. And from that point, that's like literally taking a happy pill. So it's chemicals within your brain. It triggers chemicals within your brain to be happy, to be joyful, to be in a better state. I teach meditation. Meditation is probably one of the, meditation has changed my life. It literally, it's a proven fact that it changes the chemical imbalances in your brain when you meditate. And meditation doesn't need to be sitting, in the middle of trees and saying Om, right? You can be petting your dog, you can be going mountain biking, you can be doing whatever you love, just getting your mind in a meditative state. And that's the mind body connection, is connecting your body with food, the food that you put into your body, and understanding that movement triggers the neurotransmitters in your body. And understanding also, moving the next step is the brain. So the toxic thoughts, right? I mean, your thoughts are energy, and they produce everything that it comes out into your reality, right? And so they produce your belief system, and your belief system produces your reality. And going from there, when you start to clear the toxic thoughts and everything, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not safe, I'm not lovable, all of those things are not true, right? And so when you do turn within, like we were talking about, that's really when the change happens. It's not even just in the physical form, it's changing from your mind. Literally, that's what I do, is the NLP, and it's changing the mind map in your mind, and the limiting beliefs that are no longer serving you, removing those, and then moving to your energy fields. And many people don't understand this because this is on a higher level, but we are all energy, right? And so moving through and taking the toxic energy out of your life, and not even, yes, I go deep into the quantum fields with the energy, but the basics of energy is, if somebody feels like a toxic situation, or somebody's energy feels really off to you when you walk in a room, or, then remove the toxic people and the toxic circumstances from your life. It's super easy. If it doesn't feel good, it's not supposed to be in your life, right? And so that's really the mind-body connection. And then living from your soul is the last thing that I preach, is that the more that you live from your soul, the more that you do things that bring you joy, the more connected you are going to be to your higher version of yourself. There's always a better version of you out there, and every day we get to choose that, right? We get to choose the healthier option with food. We get to choose to exercise. We get to choose to remove the limiting beliefs, and we get to choose to have toxic situations and people removed from our life. The more we do that, the more we move into a state of being, which is really being in the flow. And, if you're an athlete, it's being in the zone, whatever it may be. It's truly just being in the highest version of you when you're there. And so to get there, just what brings you joy and what feels good, do that. What doesn't feel good, eliminate that from your life, really.
So important, because it seems like for many of these different fields, it's just a choice, but for many, it's a tough one, in maybe just even knowing the right direction. I think for some people, nutrition is obviously the hard point in knowing, what they can change and what they can do to move forward. For many people, I don't think they're very, informed on what's good and bad for themselves. And obviously, due to each person, the nutritional value is going to change throughout, your own body, your own gut. So there's many different aspects on how, nutrition can impact the way, you know, your own mental health works, but as well just the way that your body feels, the way that your energy moves about. The one thing that you brought about of being in a room with someone and feeling that energy is something that I've really started to pick up on recently. As you know, someone walks directly into the room and you can feel that you're in a place of harm or just toxicity, and you say, wow, like that's something that I haven't even really noticed yet, but now you start to pick out and see how people have those energy fields that can create, you know, kind of that awareness of what's good and bad for yourself and who isn't necessarily someone that you should be connecting with. Within nutrition, I really want to speak about this topic because it's something that I think is so important for, you know, the human body, the human mind. It's something that's changed my own perspective just about, you know, my own health. And for someone that might not be informed about, you know, what's good and bad for themselves, whether it's, you know, cutting down on sugars, whether it's eating more nuts, whether it's getting in the omega-3s, you know, what is your first steps for someone in order to change the way that, you know, they have their own relationship with nutrition and their own relationship with what they're really putting into their bodies and allowing that to change their own health?
I love that you say relationship, because it is, everything is a relationship, right? You have a relationship with money, you have a relationship with food, you have a relationship with people, and people don't understand that. And so your relationship with food is really your relationship with your body, because you know, everything has a vibration, and food has a specific vibration. Basically, to start, put whole foods in your body, right? If it's processed and it's not organic, then you're putting chemicals and processed and not organic things in your body. You know, to start, the easiest thing to do, you know, yes, there is. I never ever preach diet. I know there's the keto diet. I know there's like 1,000 other diets that you can choose. I choose lifestyle, right? And so if you're constantly making better choices with food, and I certainly don't preach purity in any way, but if you are going to have wine or you're going to have beer and you're out with your friends, that's okay. But enjoy that. But understand that that's in that moment, and that then you have to shift, and you maybe have a salad instead, or you know, and start eating real whole food. And if it's not real food, it's not energy going into your body, right? And so whole organic food is the easiest path, really.
That's great. I love that because I think that's something that people, you know, misunderstand, is the aspect of how, you know, impactful processed foods can be and how they can drastically change the way that not only you feel, but the way that you think. It changes your thought patterns, it changes your emotional responses. And that's something that they don't become aware of until they can truly cut off a lot of those processed foods and sugars that change the way that their body chemistry, the way that their energy is interacting. I think energy is something, you know, that we should definitely touch on more because it's something that not many people are truly aware of today. And, you know, to speak more about your relationships with other people and the connections and communications you have with others, you know, how important is your relationships around yourself, not only for your health, but just the toxic energies that may be due to your relationships and other approaches that energy can have within your own wellness. You know, what is the true importance of the relationships that you have with other people and how they can impact your own health?
Well, there's two separate categories with that question. For sure, relationships are mirrors, and there is nobody in your life, even you and I having this interaction, right, that is not here to teach you. So we're here to, our souls come down to experience and to learn. And so relationships are literally mirrors. And so if you can get out of the ego and say, this is happening to me, instead life is happening with me, right? And so many times in circumstances where people get into the victim mentality, very often in relationships where it's, oh, they did this to me, or they did this to me, not even boyfriend, girlfriend relationships or love and intimate relationships, but everyday relationships, right? They feel that life is happening to them, but what they don't understand is life is really, truly happening with them. So let me explain relationship as mirrors. Basically, if something is going on in your outer world, it's 100% what's going on in your inner world. So if someone is treating you kindly and someone is loving you and showing affection to you, that's actually you having enough self-love to be in that vibration vibration, and they are emanating that back out into your life and showing you what's going on within you. If someone is not treating you well, or even someone cuts you off, or someone at the grocery store is super nasty, that's what's going on within you. And so if we look internally and understand that everything is energy, we are all energy, and it's not woo-woo, it does 100% science that we are chemistry, we are biology, we are energy, right? And so if you look at that, if you look at basic physics, that like attracts like, right? So if you're having negativity in your life, and you're having a negative atom is going to attract a negative atom, and the only way you can transmute a negative atom into a positive is to infuse more positive into that, right? And so if something external is happening in a relationship that you're not comfortable with, it's because that literally is a life lesson for you, and that's what you have to go internally, and you have to look and find what's going on. And that goes back to the mental health aspect of it, of I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not safe right now, I'm not secure or protected. And so many people from their childhood, from 0 to 10, you developed all these false core beliefs of, like I said, all these, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not safe, I'm not lovable. And so they it's this whole paradigm around relationships and love and how there should be treated. The only way you should be treated is the way you treat yourself. So the more self-love that you have, and the more you look within, and the more you study what's going on within you internally and emotionally, that's what's going to reflect out into your world. And so your relationships are only going to improve when you improve your inner world, for sure.
One of the most fascinating topics, I think, because the relationships with other people, many think that it's a direct, cause of just the other person, and it's something that they may be going through, yet they don't, or are not aware that they should just look into themselves and see, it's a true reflection of them. It's whether it's how they're treating themselves or how they're treating other people's around them. It's true, a direct reflection of your own self. And who you attract and who you attain in your life is directly of who you're going to surround yourself with. I think it's so important to understand as well about the concept that you're speaking about, ego. Ego is something that I've learned briefly throughout the past couple of years, and understanding how you can better understand your own ego, maybe to discern it into a lower limit, or truly master it. So this is something that you truly speak about within your own work. So, how can someone go about becoming aware and mastering their own ego in order to, be more aware and understanding of themselves?
So I would never really even say mastering your ego, because your ego is actually there to teach you. And so when you become friends with your ego, instead of, I know that a lot of the great practices say mastering your ego, and like Buddhism and things like that, but really what's going on is that they're just, you're getting to a place of neutrality with your ego. And that's the best way to say it, right? Is that your ego is not there. It's not the enemy. It's just your inner child showing you what needs to be healed. Like that. So literally, if you have conversations with your inner child, and I do this all the time, and I teach this all the time, is that you develop a relationship with the wounded child, or the wounded, that I say all the time, there's the divine feminine and the divine masculine energies, the people standing in their power, right? We each have masculine and feminine energies within us. But there's the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine too, which comes from your inner child. And so your ego is 100% just your wounded masculine and your wounded feminine. And so you have to go back and you have to find out what the core root is of what is going on. But your ego is your friend. It's there to teach you. And so it's not mastering it. It's not conquering it. It's not, breaking it down. That's such an old paradigm, right? The new paradigms are really understanding your ego and making friends with your ego, and understanding life's challenges, and not barreling through them like we've learned our entire life, but actually welcoming them, feeling them, understanding it, learning the lesson, and then releasing it is basically the next step after that.
It's a great perspective, because what I've been seeing a lot throughout the mental health field is that many of the challenges that people are facing today is due to a childhood trauma, due to this inner child of when they were either abused or when they faced a harmful consequence and experience, and these caused them to curate different emotional or behavioral patterns that, change the course of their own mental health. For what you've been seeing through, neutralizing your ego, becoming friends with your ego, how has the change within, your inner child, within touching within yourself, whether it's through, a therapy session, whether it's through a retreat style like you do, what is one way, or, some ways that people are able to touch into themselves to really see what they experienced and try to, change the perspective of their experience in order to move forward?
That's such an amazing question. And so really not fearing it, right? And so welcoming it and understanding that emotions are, that there are just a vibration. And so if you have fear, it's really the same vibration as faith, but you're at the lower end of the vibration, right? And so just literally welcoming it. Many people are afraid to go back into their past because they are in the victim. And when you are in the victim, it's this triangle of being a victim. There's always a prosecutor, there's always a victim, and there's always a hero. And you will just keep looping over and over again in that energy when you're in that space. So go back to the event in your mind. Often in meditation is fantastic a way to do this. Have a conversation with your inner child. Your inner child is screaming to talk to you, right? And so it's like having a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum and you leaving them alone in your house, and you coming back and your house is completely destroyed. Basically, that's what you're doing with your life. You're allowing your 2-year-old self to rule your life. You're leaving your life, and then you're coming back and you're like, wait, my house is a mess. But, I left a 2-year-old alone. And what's really going on is they're not there to hurt you. The 2-year-old just needs, or the 6-year-old or the 8-year-old just needs to be healed. And so facing that fear of not ever being in the victim again, and going into that and saying, I'm not the victim. This did happen to me, but it is happening with me for me to learn and expand and grow as a conscious human being. And at some point, owning yourself and saying, I am not a child anymore. I'm an adult, and I'm going to take on my life and take responsibility for and accountability for my life. And many people don't want that, because it's way easier to throw a temper tantrum than to own it and clean it up and face it and go into the darkness, right? So people fear the darkness because they think that it hurt them, when in reality, all the darkness is doing is showing you where your light is.
I love that perspective, and it's something that I did want to touch about, because I think the relationship that people have with fear is incredible. For myself, I've learned that chasing your fears, facing your fears, is something that not only incites you about who you are, but it changes your, relationship within comfort zones, within trying to, change your perspective on, what truly is your fear and what truly does scare you, or what's just a barrier between you and your higher power and, your next steps within your life. For, many people, I think, fears dictate a lot about how they act and a lot of how they think throughout their day. For many people, I think, though, fears can drive them into a better place, and it can really bring about an even better light within themselves. So why should someone identify and conquer their fears to make the next step forwards within their mental health?
Well, behind every fear is your purpose, right? And so the only reason why it is in your life is to show you that there's a greater version of you that you're not stepping into. And so I use fear as a motivator, which is, anyone that knows me knows I'm an adrenaline junkie. I'll jump off a cliff in Hawaii. I'll go skydiving. I'll do everything, right? And so I love that. And fear for me, I never really live in fear, because it's really, and if you understand the brain, and I'm going to speak a little bit science right now, but when you go into your amygdala, it's a fight or flight response, right? And so all that is doing is literally triggering all these neurotransmitters at once in your brain. And it's like, oh my God, I'm scared. I have to run. I'm going back into my safe little child, right? But if you were jumping off a cliff, or if you were getting married, or whatever it is that excites you, it's that exact same chemical within your brain that it gets triggered. So if you use that fear, it's a tremendous energy, and you could use it as a momentum. And if you power through that with empowerment, knowing that it's all within you, every one of us has it within you. stepping aside from the victim, knowing that you are empowered, knowing that you can use that fear. That's a tremendous energy as momentum, like literally like out of a shotgun, the gate, and use that as the momentum. The greater version of you is on the other side of that. And so we all come here to learn lessons. We all come here to expand. We all come here to go to a higher level of consciousness. And the only way we could do that is to conquer our fears. The only way to do that is to get through anger, to turn fear to faith, to turn anger to love, to transmute the vibrations to a higher vibrational frequency. Because when you're at a low vibrational frequency, that's where what's going to emanate out into your world. And so life teaches you, and the more that you live in the fear, the more fearful situations will come up, and it will be different people, different circumstances in different places, but I promise you the situation and the lesson will repeat itself over and over again until you learn the lesson and you move through it, for sure.
For many people, the concept of self-discovery really scares them, and it brings them back to thinking that they don't necessarily need to change or need to improve. Within your own life, you've clearly had much experience throughout many of these fields within health and wellness, and you've constantly wanted to learn more and on top change the way that people see health and wellness. For yourself, what was the driving factor for you to want to continue to educate, learn, and inspire within yourself, and to push to, help people throughout their goals and their aspirations within their life?
Well, for me, it was my soul's purpose and just stepping into it 100%, right? And so I'm a lifelong learner, and I've been doing this for 17 years, and I literally have 25 people on speed dial. I have a coach. I have people that, I call when I'm in distress. And so stepping aside and saying, I'm always the learner and I'm always the teacher. And that is separating yourself from the ego and being like, I am the therapist and you are the client, or I am the counselor, whatever it is. No one's ever above you or beneath you. We're all here to learn from each other, right? And so I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always moving to a different place, knowing and understanding that I'm also human, and there's things that happen in life, right? And so when we don't live in the human school anymore, that's when we've evolved to a greater being and we don't need to be here anymore, right? And as long as we're in a physical body, we're always learning and we're always growing. And if you stay in that mindset that you're never just the teacher or you're never just the learner and you always are both, then that opens up and expands you to allow to move through things and understand that it's okay. Because there's many times where I'm pretty much I live and eat and breathe health and wellness, and there's often where I'm not in unicorn mode, right? And it's not all bubbles and unicorns. And when I need help, I reach out. And when I need to learn something, I learn it. And when I'm constantly seeking for expansion and I'm constantly stepping into it. But when I learn, I teach, right? And so that's why we're here, is to expand consciousness to a greater, higher place, right?
Definitely. No, I completely agree. And it's such a valuable, tip that you see both perspectives, because you can see some people who, are in this higher power and truly have conquered or made the next leap within their own health and wellness, but then they don't consider themselves as a continuous learner. And that can change their own relationship within themselves, but as well with their clients and who they're trying to help. So it's definitely a great perspective to have, that you're doing both once you initially learned that it was your soul's purpose. And for many people, I think, once they understand that they want to be within this field of self-discovery, they're constantly learning and they want to know that they are the teacher and the learner. But for people who are before this step, so before yourself, when you experience these challenges and you found your soul's purpose, what do you think, was there a specific defining moment, or within, other people, what will change them to want to, step into the field of self-discovery? What can kind of change someone's perspective of, being in a place where they're eating processed foods, not exercising, to then see the power of health and wellness? How are you able to change someone's perspective to want to, be in that light of a positive health and, just a great healthy lifestyle for themselves?
Well, first, I live it and I emanate out into the world. So everything that I teach, I preach and teach because I live it. And then I'm so being the role model. But one thing that I do want to say is you can bring a horse to water and you can teach them, but you can never force them to drink, right? So if somebody is not willing to get there, they're not ready. But the thing is that if you're not ready, that's okay, and understanding that, but life is going to teach you that you're ready. So if there is no question that dis-ease is disease within you, right? And Deepak Chopra says it perfectly when he says disease is literally dis-ease within your body. And so you continue on that path, whether it's emotional health or whether it's physical health or whether it's mental health, whatever it is, life is going to show you that you're not on the right path, right? I mean, things will happen. You will get sick. You'll get into an accident. A relationship will end. It will show you that that's not longer serving you anymore. That even when through expansion, and even now after 17 years of doing this, every time I grow in my business, there's a growth spurt, right? And so what I want people to understand is that the growth spurts are never easy at all, but life will show you exactly when it's time to move on, and when it's time to stop eating processed food, when it's time to stop having those negative people in your life, when it's and there will be people that will leave your life, there will be things that will leave your life, there'll be circumstances that leave your life, but that's okay because you've expanded beyond that. And so when you look within, it's really just about how much do you love yourself. That's the biggest question you can ask. How much do you love yourself enough to know that the best version of you is always there, and you get to choose it, and you get to choose it all day, every day. It's just not one choice and then that's it. You're the highest version of yourself. It's all day, every day, making conscious choices to being a better version of yourself, knowing that just take that first step. Have the apple instead of the McDonald's, go for a run or move your body in some way, meditate, do something that brings you joy and move you. And then the next day, do something else. And then the next day. And I promise you for 30 days, if you did that for 30 days, just committed to one thing for 30 days to be a better version of yourself, I promise you by the end of the 30 days, there'll be a massive breakthrough for you, for sure.
That's awesome. It's so great to hear because, having that question of, do you love yourself? Do you want to commit to being healthy today is the one step that anybody can ask themselves, each day of just saying, do I want to commit to the exercise? Do I want to commit to eating healthy and having that apple? Do I want to commit to, hanging out with the friend that does the hobbies that I enjoy today? And, those are the questions that we need to continue to ask ourselves and see, where we can make the most improvements within our lifestyle. And, within this, you said if you take 30 days and focus on, one thing, you will see drastic changes. Throughout the topics that you've spoken with, whether it's, nutrition, exercise, relationships, energy, what is or what has been your go-to to, tell people to focus on the most? Do you see nutrition as the step one to go to in order to, make the first step within your mental health? Or, what is your biggest focus for a client that comes to you and that says, I want to change my health, and, where should I go from here?
Start with what brings you joy, right? And so with eating, what's your relationship with food? I'll do all of it. I'll talk about all of it. With food, what's your relationship with food? Why are you eating this food? And just conscious living, right? And that's what I teach is consciously saying, how does this making me feel? Am I eating this because I'm eating it because I'm emotional? It's convenient? Am I eating this because it's healthy for me? Is this going to give me food? I mean, before you put anything in your body, is it conscious eating? Conscious thinking? Are you thinking? How are you controlling your thoughts? Are you listening to everything that's going on within your thoughts? Are you enjoying your life? Are you doing what makes you happy? Are you not listening to the internal guidance system? Your body is so intelligent. It does so much work for us, right? And so just take a step back and let it work for you, and understand that you have an internal GPS that you can go there. Am I putting myself in situations that is not healthy for me? Conscious energy. Am I exerting my energy in the way that I need to? Consciously living from your soul. Are you leading towards what's making you happy? Are you doing what drives you? Are you just showing up to work? Or are you really just showing up for life? Or are you actually living this life? And so living consciously is the best way to start. Just conscious thoughts, conscious food, conscious energy, and conscious just environments that you surround yourself, because everything is a choice all day, every day. And so if you choose the better version of you, at least in one area of your life every single day, I promise that it's going to lead you to a higher version. Is it going to be work? Yes, of course. Everything is going to be work. Can you take the easier way out? Yes, you will. Will something happen in life if you don't change the whatever is going on in your life that the lessons are teaching you? Without question. 100%. That is guaranteed. You can't just get through life and not expand, because nature expands every day, all day, and we are nature, and we expand. And so if you don't expand, then life is going to show you to expand. So you get to choose to be in that space or not, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And, as you were stating that, you speak about living consciously. And, I think this is a good time to just bring about that you have a 7-day challenge called Live Consciously. And if you want to speak about this challenge and what that my audience can see about, what you offer within this challenge, and how do you help others to live consciously in this period?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, that's just one of the, I have 4 courses on my academy that you can take. One is, living from your soul. One is making the mind-body connection. One is living consciously. Basically, if you have to commit to you, that's the best thing I could say, that you 100% have to commit to you. And when you realize that you are the most important person on this planet, that's when your life starts to change. And not that it's not self-centered, it's not narcissism, it's not anything other than your cup being full, and your cup being, you living in the truth, and when you are living in your power, and you are living in your truth, and you are living consciously, you are sending that vibration out to the planet. So you are changing the planet by changing you. And so if you look within and don't worry about everything else that's going on in everybody else's life, just even for one day, I challenge people to stop and say, how can I be a better version of me today? And I promise you that when you do that, you're actually going to find more joy, because that's why we're here, right? We're here to be the best version of ourselves. We're here to have joy. We're here to live, and we're here to love. And so through my courses, it takes you step by step. Yes, I teach that, but also you could do it just on your own and find joy within you. Walk your dog, go for a run, go to the beach, enjoy, have an ice cream cone, whatever it is that brings you joy, do that and start there. I promise that's the first step, is just whatever brings you joy, do that.
Thank you so much for that, Noelle. And we'll make sure to have in the show notes to your academy and to show about these programs that you offer, so people can familiarize themselves with it, and to check out the Infinite Wellness Academy and TV show, so they can see more about the insightful resources that you provide online, so people can learn more about energy healing. They can learn more about your focus on nutrition within health and wellness, and what you're able to provide your clients through many of these programs. The one question that I really love to ask my guests to really encapsulate an important lesson or experience within your life, it's to imagine that you're writing a book about your whole life story. So whether it's based on experiences or whether it's based on lessons, you're going to have a chapter based on, each of these impactful moments in your life. I want you to give us a glimpse into what one chapter might be through, a powerful lesson or experience in your life, and give us a glimpse into why that moment or why that experience was so profound, and, how that impacted you, whether it was a positive or negative experience, but if it really drove you and impacted you into a better light. And that was something that truly changed the course of your own life and the way that you live your own self each day.
Sure. I mean, there's so many throughout my life. I believe that what you said is it's perfect. And when we're living in the moment, we understand that each moment is a chapter and a sentence in our life, right? And so I think that for me, I always say, death has brought me life, right? And so from me, my lessons were about the hardship of life and death, but it brought me this exuberant life, and I understand what life is, right? And there were so many things that happened in my childhood that I didn't speak about, and now I'm an international speaker and I have a TV show, right? And so the best thing that I could say is, to all of your viewers, is probably just live in authenticity, because your truth is within you. And if you find a situation that is happening over and over again, it's really, beyond that is your soul's purpose. I promise you, if you get through whatever circumstances going into your life and you learn the lesson, beyond that is your soul's purpose. And so really, really, life is not happening to you, it's happening with you. And you get to dance with the universe, and you get to choose to dance with the universe if you make those conscious choices, for sure.
Thank you so much for that, Noelle. I really appreciate that, honest and touching remark about how someone can live their life and, see their true purpose within, their own experiences. I'm so grateful that you took this time to be on the Mental Insights podcast for episode number 34. You can find Noelle's work at noelleagape.com. We'll also have the links towards the Infinite Wellness Academy and your TV show as well, Infinite Wellness. And I really am so glad that you took the time to speak with myself and my audience today, because the insights that you brought about health and wellness will really change their own perspective about themselves and what they can do to move forward within not only their mental health, but their physical, their emotional. There's many different aspects of our own health today, and there's many different aspects of how we can improve them. And I think you touched amazingly on many of these and what we can do to move forward to change our health. So thank you for being here for this episode. I really appreciate it, Noelle.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be on. Thank you so much.